Before we hear from our guest speaker, Tim Connor, which I'm telling you, you're really going to enjoy. I had the pleasure of speaking with him at lunchtime. I want to review just some of the upcoming events so everybody can put it into their PDA or their daytimer, whatever they have. A couple of people asked me about the PAC. If you're interested in the PAC, see me after the meeting or just send me an email. Next PAC meeting is the day before Valentine's Day, February 13th. And again, it's a half day, starts at 9 o'clock, goes to about 1 o'clock. Next CEO Club meeting, March 6th, with Jasmine Sandler. She's like a social media guru, and she's going to talk about how to better sell your products and your services via the web and so forth. The following CEO Club meeting, May 1st, that's going to be a biggie, folks. We're negotiating right now with one of the big major sports people in town. Can't tell you any more than that. It maybe football oriented. Maybe. But we'll keep you posted on that. We're hoping it's going to be that date. We might have to move around the dates a little bit, but it'll be one of our super meetings, I can tell you that. We arranged for the ballroom on that one. China, again, I've talked about it before, May 7th to the 17th. If you're interested in that, let me know, because there's only going to be a small select group that's going over to China from the U.S. This is kind of like a big deal. Like I said before, it's the opening of the corporate headquarters over in Beijing. It's like a big birthday celebration for their founder, Joe Mancuso, who's turning 72. He was telling me, I was talking to him on the phone not too long ago, this could be his last trip over to China. Joe is a great guy, but he's failing in health a little bit, and he just doesn't like that long trip over to China. So if you're interested, let me know. I can tell you it's going to be a fabulous trip. Mark your calendars, too, for the annual, this is the 12th annual Kristen Rita Strauss golf outing. It's June 9th at Hayfields. If you're interested in playing, see me or talk to Terry. And it's sold out every year. So we'll be starting making the push for that probably in another month or so. But if you're interested in playing, let me know. And then the following CEO Club meeting before we break for the summertime is June 19th with this guy, Scott Duffy. He's going to talk about how do you get from the idea to the market in terms of your product? How do you make that critical juncture within the first 2 or 3 months? Okay, let me tell you a little bit about our guest speaker. And like I said, I had the privilege of talking with at lunchtime. Tim is a real guru, I got to tell you that. He's the president and CEO of the Connor Resource Group and the Peak Performance Institute. He has been a full-time professional speaker, trainer, coach, consultant, and best-selling author for over 30 years. He's given more than 4,000 presentations in 23 countries around the world. I was trying to negotiate some of his frequent flyer miles, but he wouldn't part with any of those. Each year, over 85% of his presentations are return engagements for the same clients on topics such as peak performance, management effectiveness.
Sit down, it's enough. I can't take this anymore. Just sit down, please. Just sit down.
Tim Connor, everybody.
Sit down, please. Thank you. God, I have
off the stage.
to listen to that crap 2 or 3 times a week. Jesus. I spoke to a Rotary Club. Well, I've actually spoken to probably 500 or 1,000 Rotary Clubs, and one of the things I learned was these guys just come for lunch, or ladies. So what I typically do is I start talking near the exit door, and so now they're stuck. They can't leave because they got to go by me to get out. But I won't do that for you guys because there's probably still some more cake out there. Borders sells books. Barnes & Noble sells books. Borders went bankrupt a couple of years ago. Barnes & Noble is still in business. They both sell books. What's the problem? What's going on here? I have worked with hundreds of clients around the world in 25 countries, and I don't care whether you got 5 employees, 5,000 employees, or 50,000 employees, you all have a major disease in your organization, and it's what I call corporate disconnect. I decided a couple years ago, because I'd seen it so much, that I would actually write a book about it. Chili's sells hamburgers. Bennigan's sells hamburgers. Bennigan's is bankrupt. Chili's is still in business. Bennigan's 500 stores, gone. What's the common denominator? Question, do any of you know a business in your market area, whatever, dry cleaner or whatever, that has failed in the last 12 months? Anybody? All right, I got 2 freaking rules. You'll volunteer, participate, or I'll call on you. Does everybody understand the rule? Let me ask the question again. Does anybody know a business somewhere in your area, friend, relative, that has failed in the last year? Anybody? What kind of business was it?
Dry cleaner.
Dry cleaner. Are there other dry cleaners that are still in business? Okay, so let me understand this. If a restaurant fails and other restaurants stay in business, what's the difference? It's a couple of things. One is it's called relevance, okay? Organizations that fail lose their relevance to the marketplace, okay? It's called being stuck, if you will. There's a great book that was written about 10 years ago called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. I don't care if you've been in business for 50 years and you're doing $100 million a year in business, because my average client does probably 500 million, but I got a lot of clients in the 10, 15, $20 million range. It doesn't really matter, okay? Just because you've been doing things during the 60s and 80s and you have a history of 50 years doesn't mean that in 2014 that you're going to do that. One of the things I found is you're in one of 3 positions right now in your business. You are thriving, okay? You are prospering, you are surviving, or you're in wait-and-see mode, hoping that this economy will turn around or business will get better, or you're failing. Okay, I don't know, but I'll guarantee you're all in one of those categories. Okay, what determines the thriving and prospering organizations versus the surviving and failing and stuck organization? What in my research, and I'm not an educated guy, trust me. Okay. But I have had the pleasure of sitting across the table from CEOs of $500 million companies, and they say, what's wrong with the company? I said, you need to freaking retire. This is why I have to get paid in advance. True story. What is corporate disconnect? Have you ever been in an airplane? What is it? Do you have too much to freaking eat here or what? I know I didn't get the memo about the tie. Get over it, okay? Let it go. Let it go, okay? You're flying in an airplane, flying across the country, and you're at 40,000 feet, okay? And you decide to look out the window. And you look out the window at 40,000 feet. What can you see down there on the ground when you're flying across Colorado or Nevada? What can you see? You can see a long way, right? You can see 2 or 3 states, but can you see any detail? No. Well, as you're getting ready to come into LAX, you start coming down through 20,000 feet, and you look out the window. You can't see quite as far as you could see when you were at 40,000 feet, but what's getting a little clearer? Take your time here. My flight's not till 6 o'clock. What? The detail's getting a little clearer. When you get ready to touch down at LAX, you're not down at 500 feet. You can't see past the trees. You don't have a lot of vision out here, but what's becoming very clear? Anybody? The details. Let's relate this to an organization. Who's flying at 40,000 feet in your organizations? CEO, president. They can see a long way. I don't care whether you got 10 employees or 10,000. You can see a long way, but you can't see any what? Detail. Who's flying at 20,000 feet? Managers, supervisors, directors. They can't see quite as far as you can at 40,000 feet, but what's a little clearer? The details. I know what some of you are thinking. What's your point? 500 feet. Who's at 500 feet in your organization? Your employees. They touch the customers, they touch the market, they touch the competitors. They understand the details, customer service, sales, whatever, production. They know what's going on. What is corporate disconnect? It's when the vision, the leadership at 40,000 feet doesn't get to 500 feet with consistency, clarity, and integrity. It's when the reality that's going on in the business at 500 feet doesn't get to 40,000 feet with consistency, clarity, or integrity. Here's the major problem with corporate disconnect. You got this group at 20,000 feet. The CEO running this $10 million company knows exactly where they want to go. This is where we're headed, this is who we are, this is what we're all about. So they send this message down to who? To all their management team, spread this message throughout the organization. You got 10 managers or 100 managers. Do you think those 10 managers or 100 managers have different agendas, different experiences, different attitudes, different mindsets? So what happens is this message that was cleared now gets what? It gets filtered a little bit. So what happens to these people at 500 feet? Do they get the same message? No, everybody gets a different message. You create dysfunction. Let's reverse this. And I could go on for 3 hours. We got to finish here at 2 o'clock. Let's assume for just a minute that the employees at 500 feet can't tell their manager reality. Because the manager at 20,000 feet, don't give me bad news. Just give me good news. Don't tell me what's wrong. You don't be a troublemaker. Don't be a problem solver. So what do these people learn? They want to keep their job. They want to pay their mortgage or their rent. So what do? They edit the information that's coming up. Would you understand? You all know where I'm going with this. So this edited information now does what? And the CEO, who's got a big ego or full of arrogance, they don't want reality. I want to keep my job because I got 3 kids in college. So what do they feed up the CEO? They edit a little more. So the CEO, the people up here at 40,000 feet, are they getting any touch of reality whatsoever? The answer is no, okay? I don't care how many employees you got. Let's talk mergers and acquisitions. Most employees, when they know their company's going through merger and acquisition, would say things, if these people knew anything about what we do, we wouldn't be merging or buying this company. They don't get it. These are the employees who understand the business. When you don't bring the reality that exists in the organization to the vision and decision making and direction at 40,000 feet, this is a recipe for disaster. And if you don't believe me, look at Borders. I go through dozens of companies in the last 20 years. Anybody remember an airline that failed and was very successful and gone today? Eastern, Pan Am, go on and on. United's still out there, Delta's still out there. They both did the same thing. What's the difference? It's the mindsets, the attitudes that exist within the culture of the organization. I'm going to give you a brief 2-minute biology course. Everybody in this room has a mental filter sitting right in here. And what you're doing right now is you're filtering what I'm saying. It has nothing to do with what I'm saying. It's what you're filtering. I just spoke one of my largest clients, Snap-on Tools. I did a number of days for them last year. I was following a couple guys to the restroom during the break. And one guy says, what'd you think? Man, he's the worst speaker we've ever had at any of our meetings. This guy is an idiot. This has been a total waste of my time. What did you think? This guy has totally changed my vision and my understanding. This is the best program we've ever had. Did I say the same things to both of them? Let me repeat the question. Did I say the same things to both of them? Why did one person think it was a waste of time and another thought it was a life? It had nothing to do with what I said. It had to do with how they interpreted what I said based on what was in their mental filter. You're doing that right now. I know one thing. You are all hearing what I'm saying, but would you agree you're not all hearing it the same? What's in a filter? Culture, age, race, education, gender, experience, expectations. So that's what's going on in here, okay? And so what happens is I probably have already said something that you're thinking is worthless, is a waste of time. I have no idea. My mission in life is to annoy people, and I am proud of that, okay? Really. I will tell you, if your organizations are just coasting along and not growing, and I can't tell you how many clients I've worked with doing $20 million for the last 5 years and not growing, or they're growing at 5% or 8% when they could be growing at 20%, it's because they're not tapping into the creativity, the imagination, the passion of their employees of the organization. So they're just, well, we got to increase our sales next year by 6%. Just had that meeting with a president and a CEO in Shreveport on Monday. I said, you guys, what's wrong with you people? No, really. See, I'll give you a quick illustration. I shared this with, I forget who was out in the break. I had a client, $12 billion company, brought me in, so I went up and interviewed 150 employees. Before I work with a client, I need to understand the culture and what's going on. So I interviewed 150 employees over 2 weeks, sat down with the president, he says, what's wrong with the company? You're an idiot. I'm just the messenger here, okay? I'm taking what I learned from 150 employees. This is what they told me. We talked about it for 5 hours. He took notes, he learned, he changed. 2 weeks later, I got a call from one of his vice presidents. Said, what'd you say to this guy? Why? Well, we've done a 180-degree turn in less than 2 weeks. What did you tell him? I said, I didn't tell him anything that you couldn't tell him. You were perfectly capable of telling him, but if you'd have told him, he'd have fired you. It's called accountability. Corporate disconnect is when you create this way. It's not just outside in, inside out, top down, or bottom up. We look at organizations that have competition between finance and sales or manufacturing and some other part. What is it? Because they're all circling the wagons in the little departments and they're unwilling to do what? They're willing to reach out or branch. So what is the cost? You all know now what corporate disconnect is. In the book, I create all kinds of stuff. But if you want to know, basically, don't read the book. I'll tell you what it says. If you got a problem in your organization, you look up the ladder for the cause and down the ladder for the solution. What do most organizations do today? Up the ladder for the solution and what? Down the ladder for the cause. We got a problem over in the sales group. We got a problem in customer service. We got a problem in manufacturing. So those manufacturing people got bad hires. Nobody ever looks in the mirror. Okay? Especially at the 40,000 foot. Now sometimes at the 20,000 feet, you got people at 40,000 feet telling you, okay? Here's the problem. Can corporate disconnect in your organization put you out of business? What do you think? I will tell you, it is the one common denominator why all businesses fail, in my opinion. It's the reality that exists, for some reason, doesn't get where it needs to get, where vision and goals and direction are created and then enhanced and developed. Well, so you tell me, you now know what corporate disconnect is. How can corporate disconnect cost you? What are some of the negative consequences of corporate disconnect in a business? Help me out here.
Financial.
What do you mean financial? You can lose money. How would you lose money?
Because, you basically don't know what's going on and you are not...
Could you lose customers? Because there's a disconnect between employees and customers. Same thing, okay? So you lose customers. Could you lose market share? Could you lose reputation? I could go on and on and on. It becomes redundancy. You'd be amazed at how many organizations that you want an example about disconnect? Look at the federal government today. This is a prime example of disconnect. Nobody else knows what anybody else is doing. They're all just doing their thing, circling the wagons, trying to get stuff done, and it has no impact. But nobody's listening to the 350 million people who are what? The employees at 500 feet. They're just doing what they want to do, how they want to do it up here. Okay? And until we solve this disconnect problem, we will always have this problem for you and I as members of this country. Perfect example. Can disconnecting exist in a family with 5 people, 3 kids and 2 parents? Yes, it does. Okay. The consequences of corporate disconnect are dramatic, traumatic, and can cause you to lose business. You started a business, you inherited a business, you run a business, whatever your position is here in this particular group. And some of you probably don't remember, but I spoke to this group about 10, 12 years ago. I also spoke to the Boston CEO Club 10 or 12 years ago, and they asked me back. I'm speaking up there again at the end of this month. But this is a different message. But the bottom line is, I'm still in business. There's a lot of my peers who are out of business, some great speakers and great trainers who are gone. And why is it? Because it's called relevance. I have to read at least 2 books a week, and I'm not saying that to brag. If I'm going to stay relevant at my age, and I'm guessing older than everybody in the room. I know some of you are thinking, because I'm older than what's his name over there, Hirsch, okay? I am older than you, okay? But the bottom line is, if I don't stay relevant with what you need and what you want and what you need to do in your business, okay, am I going to be standing in front of any more groups the next 5 or 10 years? No, because we want somebody who understands social media. That's the big deal. Well, let me tell you, folks, personal opinion, I love technology, okay? I'm not against technology, but technology is causing us to lose the human touch in relationships. And if we keep going the direction we're going, we're going to not have relationships with people anymore. It's all going to be texting and emailing, and we're not. And if you want to have a successful relationship with an employee, with a customer, don't send me a frigging text and don't send an email. I want to have a conversation with you, okay? But we're losing that because it seems to be the easy and the cheaper way to do it. Facebook's, LinkedIn, I'm not against this stuff, okay? But when we start to rely only on that and lose the fundamentals, the critical factor is this when it comes to corporate disconnect. Have you ever heard this concept, think outside the box? Have you ever heard that? You probably have said that to your employees. Think outside the box, think outside the box. Let me ask you a question. When you think outside the box and you try something new and it doesn't work, what can you do now? Jump back in the box. Now where are you? Right back where you started from. Here's my suggestion. Throw the box away. Don't give yourself the ability. I'm not saying throw away what the lessons you've learned, the experience you've had, but throw away the ability to do what? To go back to your comfort zone with a policy, procedure, or approach that might have worked 5 years ago or 10 years ago. You'd be amazed at how many organizations today are stuck. I could give you dozens of examples of clients that I've worked with in different industries, different sizes, different agendas, different mindsets. The bottom line is they're stuck. What is it? Because what they're doing is they're filtering, okay? This filter impacts how you run your business. Does anybody know how to use a computer in this here? Anybody? You know how to use a computer? David, it's Thursday. You push G on the keyboard on your computer. What comes up on the screen? I don't want to play with you anymore. Pat, you push G on the keyboard. What's coming up on the screen?
The news?
G. Hello, anybody? G on the keyboard, what comes up on the screen? G. If it's raining out, you push G on the keyboard, what's coming up on the screen? G. Every time you push G on the keyboard, what's coming up on the screen? G. Why? Because there's a software program in the computer that says G on the keyboard means what? G on the screen. You get this? Same thing with your smartphone, okay?
That's an old computer.
Don't start something you can't finish, okay?
600 years old.
I'm 750, okay? Okay, but what does this have to do with anything? There's a hardware program, what, in your computer that stores what? Data. And you load data in there, you download something, you put a CD and you load data, okay? That's what we call the what? The storage device. The computer is just like a human brain. Everything you've ever exposed to, everything you've ever learned, everything you've ever thought, everything you've ever experienced is stored in one of the 300-400 billion brain cells right here in this thing right here. There are over 3 trillion chemical reactions in the human brain every second. You don't have to think about those. You're digesting your lunch right now. Are you thinking about that? No. Do you know that you get 80,000 heartbeats a day? Anybody ever think about that? 80,000 heartbeats a day, 40 to 45,000 breaths a day. You go to sleep at night and you get 45,000 breaths while you're sleeping. Do you ever think about that? No, because it's automatic. This is being run by the unconscious portion of the human brain, or what? The hard drive. Here's the problem. There's a lot of stuff in our hard drive that is what? Untrue, outdated, but we still do what? We still default back to that because the oldest part of the human brain is called the reptilian brain, and what happens is it's grounded in fear. So today, if somebody loses their job, somebody has their automatic first reaction is what? Is to go to a fear mindset. Everybody in this room, you've created mindsets, and these mindsets, these attitudes, these philosophies are how you live your life and how you what? Run your business. Let's assume you have an employee that has a different mindset than you. Let's assume that you have a customer that has a different mindset than you. Anybody in the room married? I guess none of you either aren't or unwilling to admit it, I guess. Is that the idea or what? You married?
Yes.
What's your wife's name?
I am.
Bael. Does she have buttons? Buttons, not blouse buttons, buttons. Emotional buttons. You push a button, she gets upset.
Yes.
She got buttons?
Yes.
You have buttons?
Yes.
What are they? See, does any of your spouse have buttons? You want to get them mad, what do? You push one of their buttons, right or wrong. Some of your employees, what do? They push your buttons every now and then because what we do is automatically go into what? The default mechanism in our brain, react this way, okay? Here's the problem. When we are unwilling to see things in a new way, it's because, not because we don't want to, it's because we're what? It's so much easier. Perception drives corporate disconnect because when people bring something to the table, if they're uncomfortable with that because it's new, or maybe it's got to be my way or the highway, or nobody needs people, I'm the smartest guy in the room, I don't know what the approach is or what the mindset is. The bottom line, this is all driven by what? It's driven by a habitual perceptual interpretation that was put in you by people that you couldn't control. I'm going to repeat that. Your teachers, your churches, your parents, your neighbors, your uncles, what do they do for 10, 15 years? They dump stuff, and it developed within you a self-esteem, a mindset, and attitudes, and when you're 35 years old and you're vice president of sales, what are you bringing to a sales meeting with all your salespeople? You're bringing what? That stuff that's in what? Your mindset. Anybody ever had a conflict with anybody, any employee? When we talk about corporate disconnect, it's a constant management of conflict. Anybody had a conflict with anybody in the last week with somebody? You have? Why are you the only one raising your hand? Nobody else is willing to admit it, I guess. Is that it? Think about just for something a minute. What is conflict? You come to a conversation with someone and you have an idea, an approach, a philosophy. And you try to do what? Explain that to them. Maybe it's an employee bringing you a new idea. Maybe it's your spouse. I don't care what it is. You try to convince them that you are what? Right. And they are what? Wrong. Do they have a filter? Do they have a mindset? They have an idea. They try to convince you with their ideas what? Better than yours, or that you are what? Wrong, and they are right. That's conflict. The source of all conflict in all relationships is what's stored in a person's mental filter, and the attitudes and the mindsets they bring to creativity, innovation, problem solving, I don't care what it is. Here's the problem in corporate disconnect. Your employees at 500 feet know probably more about your business than you do. I'm just guessing from my experience. They know the reality. They don't know maybe the equity situation up here. They don't know the market conditions up, but they know the real stuff. If you're not tapping into this information, you are losing the ability to stay relevant in the marketplace and to stay competitive and be here 5 years from now or 10 years from now when you are 5 or 10 years older. Let me ask you a question. Do you think people as they get older lose the ability to be flexible?
Yes.
Why?
They're set in their ways.
What does that mean, set in their ways?
Their mindset is where it is.
Do you have a right to your opinions? Do you have a right to your viewpoints and your prejudices? Do you? Do I have a right to my opinions, my prejudices, my viewpoints? Here's my problem when you make mine wrong because they're different than yours. There is a concept called truth. I would have done that with somebody else, but I wanted to annoy you. Why did that happen? Anybody? Why did that happen? Will it happen over here? Why does it happen over here? Because gravity's over here. Does gravity care whether you believe it or not or accept it or not? Gravity is a truth that exists and you can deny it all day long. Gravity exists as a truth. Would you agree with that? Here's the problem. When we start to think that our truth is what? The truth. When we start to think that our way is the only way or the best way, we lose the fact that there are always interpretations or varieties of truth based on what? Based on the mindsets that we have. And when you do not get clarity on these from the people in your organization, you start to lose effective communication. You start to lose integrity. The last book I had come out about 3 months ago, it's one of my favorites. It's called Blah, Blah, Blah. That's actually the title of the book. Blah, blah, blah. What does that mean? Has anybody ever lied to you? Has an employee ever misled you? Have you ever misled to an employee, your kids, your spouse, anybody? Why do we do this? Because we want to avoid the conflict. We don't want to hurt people's feelings. So we tell them little mistruths or half-truths, whatever. It's kind of hard to develop trusting relationships. Look at the biggest problem in Washington today is what? Trust. Why? Because they're all doing what to us? Misleading us, lying to us. And they're even afraid to use the word lie. It's called political correctness. I could give a crap about political correctness. It is not in my DNA. My best friend, Vincent, is black. We've known each other 25 years. We get together a couple times a month for dinner, go out to have a couple of drinks. We love each other. And we go to a club, we'll start talking, you black this, you black that. And he says, you white this, you white that. And we love to watch the people watching us talking because they're going freaking nuts. Look at those guys. They're a couple of racists. See, for us, it's not what? It's not color. It's about what? It's about friendship, okay? We don't base it on that. So political correctness, we're going to get to the point where an employee is not going to be able to say anything to you about anything because from the HR rules or the regulations, you're going to fire them in a heartbeat, which means you're going to get totally out of touch with reality. Political correctness is taking us down, in my opinion, the wrong path. I actually have a chapter in the book on political correctness. I'll give you one example. Illegal immigrants. We can't call them illegal immigrants anymore. Why not? Because it offends them. Are they illegal?
Yes.
Are they immigrants?
Yes.
Well, let's start calling them wandering visitors. I don't know. Or people without a home. Fat people. Are they fat? No disrespect to anybody. I lost 50 pounds last year. You know, are fat people fat? I mean, the word is fat. We have to use obese, and we can't use obese because Christianity in this country is being eroded very, very quickly because you can't say Merry Christmas anymore. It's just stuff is driving. This drives me nuts. Okay. Do I have a right to say Happy Hanukkah to you or Merry Christmas to you or whatever? I tried something as an experiment this past Christmas. I started saying Merry Christmas to everybody, total strangers. You know what happened? Some people ignored me. Some people said Merry Christmas back. Some people looked at me like I was nuts. If you do not create the culture in your organization for integrity and communication, both top down and bottom up, what you're going to create are breakdowns in communication and integrity and in morale. What are some of the symptoms that you might have corporate disconnect in your organization? Well, in the book, and I also put out a handout, it's on the table back there, I have 98 questions that you can ask yourself, and I will guarantee if any of you ask yourself those 98 questions about your business, you will come up with at least a 20 to 50% that you have a problem somewhere in your organization due to that issue with corporate disconnect. What causes this? What are some of the symptoms of corporate disconnect, do you think? Could losing good employees, losing good customers. You tell me. What about margins, profits? What else? Quality of work, performance, effectiveness, redundancy. Okay, enough. What can you do? What actions can you take to start to reduce the negative impact that corporate disconnect might be having on your relationships or your business? Let me put it this way first. You can't get rid of it. You can put two people living in the same bed, sleeping in the same bed, married for 40 years. Are they going to have differences? Are they going to have issues? You can't eliminate this stuff. What you have to do is develop a system or a process or a strategy or approach to managing it. You can't get rid of corporate disconnect. Okay? I had a lady friend I dated, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 years ago. She worked in the pharmaceutical industry. Her territory was North Carolina. She had 100% of the business in North Carolina. The only way she could sell more business in North Carolina was if they built another hospital or if the company came up with a new product. It's the only way she could increase her revenue. Her manager said, you have to increase your revenue next year by 10%. She said, how am I going to do that? I'm already selling 100% of our products and services to 100% of the prospects in North Carolina. Where am I going to get 10% more business? She said, I don't care, you got to come up with 10% more business. Was there a disconnect issue there in terms of creating goals, creating what? Budgets. I just had this conversation with a client yesterday. He said, our people are not, they say we're going to hit this budget, but then they don't what? Then they don't hit it. Let me ask you, if you needed to pay your mortgage and your car payment and your manager says you're going to be able to hit this number this year, what are you going to tell them even though you know you're not going to be able to hit that number? What are you going to tell them? You're living in fantasy land unless you create integrity in the relationship that you have with these people. So when are you going to find out that they didn't hit their number? Anybody? The end of the year. Now, wouldn't you like to have a little bit more integrity in this process so you can make corporate plans for acquisitions or for expansion or for new buildings or new equipment, whatever you need to do with so you need to have some assurance that you're going to actually have some reality in this. But you know what? I went around the room with this group, 28 salespeople, said, where do you get your forecasts from? What do you think the common answer was to everybody in the room? Right out of the air. And the president is sitting there. I thought he was going to faint. The vice president of sales is sitting there, was probably going to have a heart attack. Because did they know that? But they didn't want to do what? They didn't want to face it. They couldn't create the openness and honesty in this relationship where let's figure out how we can help you do that rather than telling you what you need to do. The major problem with corporate disconnect is when there's a lot of editing going on in relationships. It's also driven by corporate culture. What is corporate culture? Corporate culture is sort of the mindset that exists in your organization. One of the clients I worked with last year, the corporate predominant culture, they had about 600 employees in 3 locations. The predominant corporate culture was we do everything at the last minute. Everything, sales, manufacturing, shipping, everything was all done at the last minute. Why do you think everything was done in customer service at the last minute? Well, because everything was done as sales in the last minute. Because their managers did everything what? At the last minute. Why did all the managers and directors do everything at the last minute? Anybody? Because the CEO did everything at the last minute. Culture starts at the top and then is done what? Driven down throughout the organization. It is lived from the bottom up, but it is created from the top down. Here's the interesting thing. If you don't know what's going on, how can you fix it? If you don't know what's causing the problem, how can you change it or fix it? If your employees are unwilling to be honest with you in terms of their communication, in terms of their behavior, how are you going to change it or fix it? The major problem I see in organizations today, I don't care the size, is integrity. The second one is accountability. What do I mean by accountability? Let me summarize an all-day management program with one sentence, because it directly relates to corporate disconnect. You get the behavior you reward. Period. You get the behavior you reward. If you don't like the behavior you're getting, stop looking at the behavior. If you got a bad employee, you know, if anybody got a 4-year-old kid, you take him into Target, Mommy, Daddy, I want this truck, I want this doll. You can't have this doll, you got dolls you don't play with, I want this doll. So they throw themselves on the floor, start screaming and yelling. And what do? You give him the truck, you give him the doll. What'd you just teach this kid? You want a doll or a truck, scream and yell and make a fool of yourself, you get the truck. Because you don't want to embarrass, parents don't want to be embarrassed in Target. Let me ask you a question. This 6-year-old grows up and becomes a 35-year-old employee. You get the behavior reward. If you have an employee that's always 5 minutes late and you don't say anything, what's the message you're sending to that employee? Being 5 minutes late is acceptable behavior. What's it sending to the rest of the employees? I'm always on time, but nothing happens if you're 5 minutes late. It becomes contagious, okay? If you don't like the behavior you're getting, I don't care if it's manufacturing or shipping or customer service or finance, stop looking at the behavior. Look at the reward system, because here's what's happening. As a manager, as a CEO or a president of a company, you are doing one of two things. You are either tolerating the behavior or you're contributing to the behavior by your actions and decisions and behavior. Let me repeat that. You're either tolerating it or you are contributing to it. Either one is a recipe for disaster. How do we change the behavior? You have to create more accountability. I can't tell you how many clients I have that when they have rules and procedures and processes. And when somebody doesn't follow the rules or the procedures or the process, guess what happens? What happens? Nothing. Why do you act surprised? I mean, really, if you say you be on time or you're going to be late or you can't get paid or nothing happens. I have a client up in New York State. They have 80 salespeople doing about $400 million a year in sales, and they're going broke. They got $400 million coming in the front door every year, but they're going broke because there's no margins. There's no profits. And the reason there's no profits is because they pay their salespeople based on sales volume, period. So whatever your sales volume is, that's how we structure your compensation program. So let me ask you a question. If you were a salesperson for this organization, what would you sell? The stuff that makes the company profit or the stuff that puts the most money in your pocket? You'd sell the stuff that puts the most money in your pocket. And the president's a smart guy. So I said, if you were one of your salespeople, if they got 10,000 products, which would you sell? Well, I'd sell the one that, and then he gets it. I said, what do you want the outcome to be? He said, we want margins and profits, we want new customers, we want customer retention, but your compensation program is not designed for that. It's only designed for one thing. That's the result you're getting, sales revenue, but no profit. If you don't like the behavior, you have to look at what's contributing to or tolerating the behavior. Here's the problem. It's what I call playing checkers with clients when it comes to corporate disconnect. What do I mean by playing checkers? I know you like magic, and I don't want to know how you did that, because I know it's... Do you know how to play checkers, Dick?
Sure.
I'm not convinced. Do you really know how to play checkers?
Sure.
You're really excited about this checker game, aren't you? I can tell.
No.
No, I didn't think so. So let's not play. Tom, you know how to play checkers? So let's get a checker game. We get the black ones and the red ones. We put them on a board. You get the red, I get the black. I flip a coin. You get to go first. Whose move is it? You go first because you won the toss. After you move, whose move is it now? My move. Can you move again before I move? Why not? It's called checkers. It's called cheating. How do you play checkers? You move, I move, you move, I move. We keep going back until we get bored of the game or someone wins or we just don't want to play anymore, right? We keep going back and forth. Let's relate this to your employees. You decide to hire a new employee. Somebody talks about hiring and developing new employees. You hire a new employee. What's the first step? You play checkers. You run an ad, you put something on career development, builder, or whatever, and they respond to the ad. You moved, you put the ad on, they responded, there was their move. Whose move is it now? It's your move. You decide to do what? Set up an appointment with them. Whose move is it now? Their move. They're on time. Whose move is it now? Your move. You do what? You tell them about the job and responsibilities. Whose move is it now? They ask questions and learn about what things they want to know. Whose move is it now? You either offer them the job or you don't. Let's assume you offer them the job. Whose move is it now? This is not complicated. You offer the job, they either accept it or not. Let's assume they accept the move. That's their move. Whose move is it now? They accepted the job. Whose move is it now? So we're playing checkers. You give them the training, the support, the resources they need to be successful. Whose move is it now? theirs. They take advantage of the training, they use the tools, and that's the way the relationship goes back and forth, whether it's 6 months or 5 years. You keep moving back and forth. Are you with me so far? Here's the problem. Most managers cheat at checkers. How do they cheat? They have an employee that it's their move, but they're not doing what? They're not moving. I had a client out in California. They had their top sales guy would never come to sales meetings. He would never participate in stuff. He would never move, even though the management was trying to do what? Create opportunities. His attitude was, I'm the #1 sales guy, so I'm not going to come to this. I don't have to participate. I'm a prima donna, I'm whatever. He wasn't moving. So I told the president, fire him. He said, we can't fire him. I said, well, why don't you play checkers with him? How do you play checkers? I explained this whole concept with him. I will bet everybody in this room has somebody in your organization that has done what? Has stopped moving. Yes or no? Yes. And now what do? You want to get them to move, so what do you do for them? You move, come on, come to the meetings. We need you to, we need you. You go out of your way to try to get them to make a move. Yes or no? Yeah. You get the behavior reward. So if they don't move and you move for them, what's the subtle message you just sent to them? They don't have to move. Game over. I share this with many of my clients. I said, when you're hiring a new employee, why don't you talk about the checker game? Explain to them that as long as you keep moving, as your manager, as your organization, I will keep moving. But if you decide to stop moving at any point after I have moved, guess what? Anybody? Game's over. I will guarantee that at least one of you have a couple people in your organization that have stopped moving, but you're not doing what? You're still trying to play the game. Yes or no? This will be a first to me. Nobody has an employee that they have. Do you think these cost you in the long run? Because they take your time as a manager to do what? To try and get these people to move. But what's the message you're sending to other employees? That's the critical issue. What's the culture like? So-and-so gets away with this, well, maybe I can get away with a little bit. They can try that, maybe I can try this. And now you develop this total corporate dysfunction. I don't know, I've wandered around the world and I've seen where people at the top of the organization, when I share these simple concepts with them, they look at me like I'm kind of crazy. And I'm thinking, well, we're doing $400 million a year in sales, that's pretty good. Or we're doing $20 million a year in sales, that's pretty good. My response is, what could you be doing? I don't care what you're doing. What could you be doing if you could address some of the internal dysfunctional issues that are getting in the way of your profitability or your growth? Is it you at the senior level in the organization? Is it your management style and how you're addressing people? So what can you do to create sort of a clarity as you go down from 40,000 feet to 500 feet and back up? First of all, I would suggest that you have people understand you have to create a safe emotional environment in the organization. What do I mean by a safe emotional environment? It's okay to tell the truth. It's okay to be honest. I'm not telling you what is, I'm just telling you what I experience and what I'm feeling. In other words, if you're a bad manager, do you have an employee that can come to you? What's your first name again? I'm sorry?
Diane.
Diane, do you have an employee that thinks you're a bad manager? Can they come to you? The worst manager I've ever worked for. I don't talk about you, I'm talking about Nick. Do you have the mindset to say, well, let's talk about that. Let's discuss that. Or do you automatically do what? Go into the defense posture because you're unwilling to do what? You're unwilling to change the information. The most important thing you need to do is to clean out your mental filter. Because you've all got crap in your mental filter, stuff that is getting in the way of your happiness, success, inner peace, whatever it is. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll write you all a check before we leave for $50,000. Doug doesn't need this because I saw his car in the parking lot, but that's okay. I'm going to write you a check for $50,000, okay? Here's what I'm going to do. I used to have a couple of those. What I found was they cost me more to own them than they did to buy them. Just my experience. Here's the deal, though. There's two conditions with this 50 grand check. Number one, you have to go out and buy a new car, okay? And number two, you can't change the oil in that car for 100,000 miles. Are you with me? If you don't change the oil in your car for 100,000 miles, what will happen to your car? Stop working, engine blow up, catch on fire, right? So what do? Every 3,000 or 4,000 miles, you go out and spend 40 or 50 bucks and you change the oil and the oil filter in your car to keep your car doing what? Running smoothly. I will guarantee that a lot of you have some stuff in your mental filter that's what? That's clogging up your decisions, your behaviors, because you're unwilling to do what? to clean out the crap that was put there by somebody or something, some experience, okay, that is getting in the way of your ability to make clearer, better, more accurate decisions, or to learn from other people or experience other things. Just what's your approach, your attitude when somebody comes to you as an employee and they have a different opinion than you? Do you sort of freeze up, or are you totally open to that? Trust me, I have worked with hundreds of organizations, and again, I don't mean to be redundant, but this is why I have to get paid in advance. I don't care what the amount is, because if I'm not paid in advance, I'm more concerned about being what? Liked and accepted. So I'll do things and say things because I need that 5, 10 grand coming in every month to support my business. So I can't annoy you or upset you. You know what? I appreciate you having me to this meeting and to share some ideas with you folks. And quite frankly, I would really like you to like me. I would like you to respect me even though I didn't wear a tie or a sport coat. I didn't get the memo, Terry, I didn't get the memo on the tie. I really would like you to like me, but I really don't care. Let me repeat that. I would like you to like me, but I really don't care. I decided a long time ago it's more important that I like me than you like me. It's more important that I go through the time I've been given here to approve of myself. Doesn't mean I can't be better, doesn't mean I can't change, doesn't mean I can't grow. But if I'm in front of 50, 100,000 people a year, if I'm concerned whether you like me because I did this and you like me because I did that and I didn't do this and didn't do that, who do I lose after a very short period of time when I want everybody to like me? I lose me. And I like me. I'm not perfect. I need to make a lot of changes. I annoy people. You know what? I'm the greeter in my church at 8 o'clock every Sunday morning. And I tell you, the church attendance at my church has dropped dramatically over the course of the last couple of years. Just kidding. Because the average age is 80. Take that where you want. I don't really care. If your employees, if your customers can't handle disagreement, here's the bottom line. Disagreement is not about disloyalty. Disagreement is about what? They're telling you what's in their filter based on their experience. Doesn't mean it's right or best for your organization, but wouldn't it help to create a better flow of bottom-up information and create more integrity from the top down? I can't tell you how many CEOs and presidents of organizations I've worked with who, one client that had 10,000 employees, he relies 100% on the feedback from his vice presidents. I said, have you ever had lunch with one of your employees? Have you ever taken a walk in the woods? Have you ever had coffee with one of your employees? If you want to find out what's going on, bypass your direct reports. I'm not talking about snooping, what's going on in his department. They will share this stuff with you. Just get by the immediate group and get down to a lower level in the organization. And you'll be amazed at the integrity sometimes of information you'll get, which might help give you a totally new vision of what's going on in your organization and why. I was told by Doug that I have to stop at exactly 2 o'clock, and I've got almost 11 minutes of. Let me wrap up my presentation. If you would like, I can open for questions. I typically don't like questions. This is it. You didn't let me finish my sentence. Okay? This topic is a 3-hour, 6-hour, 2-day program. I did it in, 45 minutes. So obviously I had to leave a lot of stuff out and not go in a lot of detail that might have been helpful. I understand that. The reason I don't like to take questions is because sometimes somebody asks a question, I can't give them a legitimate good answer in 30 seconds or a minute. So sometimes what the answer might do is create more questions or more confusion. And so I don't like to do that. And if I got an all-day program, I encourage questions throughout the entire day. Just keep them coming. We'll keep talking about those. But in this kind of a setting, sometimes it's hard. But I'm happy to take any questions you have. I'm going to hang around for a few minutes after the meeting is over. I have to scoot to the airport. I have to be there by 4:30 because I got a flight to Cleveland. But I'm going to be happy to hang around for 10, 15 minutes after the meeting is over. But there's 2 things I'd like to do before I actually take your questions. First of all, I do a weekly motivational booster article. I've been doing them for 15 years. I have 20, 30,000 subscribers around the world. They are free, okay? They go out every Tuesday. There's no promotion. I'm not trying to sell you anything. It's just an article that I've written on some particular motivational, inspirational development topic. There is a little card on your table that's, well, there should be a little card on your table. Thank you. All you have to do is turn it over. If you'd like to get on my motivational booster list, just click the box. There's a little thing on the back of the table back there. Just throw it in there, and I'll add you to my list. If you don't, I get them for a couple weeks, and you don't want to get them anymore, I use Constant Contact. It's very simple. You just click the little button, and you're gone. They are free. I encourage people, if there's a particular article you feel might benefit someone else, please feel free to forward that on or pass it on to someone else. The second thing I've put on the table is I'm offering you guys a bundle package on some of my books. I've written 80 books. I've got over 350 products of mine on my website. If you want to order anything today, I'm not going to go into a detailed sales pitch. Some of the things I don't have room to display everything I've done, so I put a few things on the table. You have an order form in front of you if you want to fill that out and do something today. Because I'm out of town for the next couple of days, it says today only. What I will do is extend this for you. So if you have to rush out of the meeting at 2 o'clock and you don't want to take time to order something, okay, if you go to my website and you order anything before Sunday, just put CEO Club in the comment section and I will extend to you the same discount that you have on that form that I've given you. So just to honor the fact that you guys might have other things to do. Let me wrap up and then I'll take your questions. Perception is everything in life. Two people go watch the movie Forrest Gump. One person likes it, another person doesn't like it. They're watching the same movie. I don't know whether you're happy with where you are right now in your life or not happy. I don't know whether you're feeling joy or not feeling joy. I don't know whether you're as successful as you think you could be or would like to be. But I do know this. We're all going to die. I'm not trying to be morbid here. We're all going to die. My hero, Mark Twain, who I wish I could have known, one of my favorite quotes of his was, 20 years from now, you'll be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than the things you did do. So leave the safe harbor, set sail, and dream, discover, and explore while you still can. I don't know where you are in your lives, what your age is, what you've accomplished. You might have accomplished tremendous things in serving community, and you've done wonderful things. What I would ask you to do is take a look at what could you still be doing to serve others, humanity, your fellow members here in CEO Club, people in Baltimore or in Maryland, your employees. It doesn't matter. Service to me is what we will look back on and say, what was my life? Did it have meaning? It's not going to be how much money you made. It is not going to be the house you lived in. I'll guarantee you it's not going to be the car you drove. When you check out of here, whenever that is, because we're all going to have our last heartbeat, what was your legacy that you left behind you? What was a legacy in your business? Were you an engaging, supportive employer? Or were you a tyrant? Were you a pain in the neck? I mean, I don't know. What did you give back? I believe that when our time here is over, I don't know where we go. I don't know how we get there. But I do know this. We are here right now. And the question I would ask you to think about is, what do you want your legacy to be? Is it the fact you lived in a 10,000 square foot house? Is it the fact you made millions of dollars? You traveled the world? My experience with the people I've known, and I've lost 4 really good friends in the last 5 years. Charlie Tremendous Jones, who was my best friend and mentor for years, 25 years, passed away. Zig Ziglar passed away. Recently, Jim Rohn passed away. I could go on and on with these people didn't know they were going to die, but they had a significant impact on the people that they knew and the people that their lives that they touched. I would encourage you, if you own a business, or you happen to be a senior executive in a business, to look at the business from what are you doing to serve other people, whether it's your employees, whether it's your customers, and how are you doing it, and could you be doing more of that? I want successful businesses to thrive and succeed. That's my only agenda. If they're doing something good for society and for humanity, I want them to do more of that. If they're not doing well, I have no problems if they fail, okay? Most of you, I will guarantee you, could probably be accomplishing more. I'm not talking necessarily more money, but maybe you could be doing another 5 or 10 or 15 or 20. Why aren't you? Is it because you're not tapping into the creativity that you have within your organization? Are you not trusting your employees to bring value to you? I would ask you to take some time and spend it looking in the mirror a little bit more than most people are typically willing to do because they're so busy looking at their iPhone, their iPad. You know that the average person today is spending 4.5 hours a day looking at a screen? TV, iPad, iPhone. The average person today is spending 4.5 hours a day looking at a screen. Man, that's and versus doing what? Talking to people. I was with a president a couple weeks ago. He said, just a minute. I got to send an email to one of my employees. Who are you sending it to? My vice president of sales. Just a minute. I said, where's your vice president of sales? Well, he's down the hall. I went behind his desk, picked him up. We're going down the hall. Talk to him. Well, I want to make sure there's a paper trail so he know. See, do you have a problem when you have to have a paper trail in the organization? You have a trust issue, you have a credibility issue. When everybody, well, I told you about that. Remember March 15th, 208, I told you. Then you've got other issues going on in your organization. It's not being driven by what? By integrity and by consistency and by clarity. Anybody got a couple of quick questions? I got about 5 minutes. Yes, sir.
How do you feel about managing walking around?
How I feel about it? My phrase is you can't manage your organization from behind your desk.
Well, every morning I get up, and I get in the office, I get a cup of coffee, and I go down into one of the other departments for the people at that bottom level and say, how's your son doing the soccer game? What do you think? You know, this type thing and so forth. And I explain to them that I can tell the client anything I want. But every time you answer the phone, every time you pick up a pen or a piece of paper, you are the company. But the big difference is, I don't let any of them call me by my last name. My name is Bill, and we're in it together. Management by walking around keeps you in touch a lot more than issues, memos, and meetings.
You're absolutely right. You know, a bank president spends, $50 million trying to get a new corporate client that's going to give him $10, $20 million in revenue a month. Works 6 months to try to get this new huge corporate client. They finally get him. Kind of tell her, screw up that relationship. And you get a lot of organizations that what do? They run as fast as they can. There's no sense of compatibility. I think we're running out of time because people are bailing. No, I got 2 minutes, so I got 2 minutes. Anybody have? Yes, sir.
So when you talk about creating corporate culture, who would you say champions that initiative besides the executive management? Is there a departmental function?
No, it's not. Well, yes and no. If you have branches or divisions, okay, let's assume you got a sales department and you got a finance department or you got a branch office. There are cultures that are driven by the senior person. So if you've got a finance department and 5 people work in that finance department has its culture driven by the manager of that department. But you also will have an overriding corporate culture that represents the corporate culture. So the sales culture might be different than the finance customer. The customer service culture might be different than a culture. That's why you have a bank that has, or take a restaurant chain that's got 500 restaurants. Every one of the restaurants has got a different culture, but there's also an overriding culture that will tend to drive the unique, smaller cultures within it. Yes? No, I'm sorry. Anybody else? Quick question. Got a couple of minutes.
Would you have a solution for Christie to get out of his bonds? Governor Christie of New Jersey?
I would. And I have to keep going back to my friend Mark Twain. And what Mark Twain says was, if you always tell the truth, you don't have to remember what you said. What we need today in relationships, regardless of the position, government, employers, husbands and wives, kids, what we need is truth. Not my version of truth. This is what happened. If he's telling the truth, then he shouldn't worry about the consequences. If any politician or any manager or any spouse is telling the truth, they shouldn't have to worry about the consequences because the truth will prevail. When we don't deal in truth, we are spending more time protecting ourselves from the ripple effect of not telling the truth than having to deal with the pain, short term, of having to deal with the truth. My answer to pretty much everything is just tell the truth. I mean, not your opinion, this is what happened. When I start saying things, this is how I feel, this is what I believe, that's totally different than the truth. So thank you very much for the opportunity to serve you guys. Have a great day.
Thank you, Tim. Fantastic job. Thank you all. See you next meeting.